Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Total world victory of Hare Krishna. My name is Sitapati Das, and this is Bhagavad-gita 145. Again, I'm accompanied by my wonderful devoted wife, Dana Devi. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Bhagavad-gita, the Song of God, Bhagavad-gita as it is, by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Chapter 1, observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna Vishad Yoga. Text number 45. Yadi mam apratīkāram aśastram śastra-pāṇayaḥ dhārtarāṣṭrā raṇe hanyus tanme kṣema-taraṁ bhavet. Let's go word for word. Synonyms. Yadi.
Even if.
Mam.
Me.
Apratīkāram.
Sorry. Me. Español.
Apratīkāram.
Without being resistant.
Aśastraṁ.
Without being fully equipped.
śastra-pāṇayaḥ.
Those with weapon in hand.
dhārtarāṣṭrā.
The sons of the Dhṛtarāṣṭra.
raṇe.
On the battlefield.
hanyuḥ.
May kill.
tat.
Me. That. Sorry.
me.
For me.
kṣema-taraṁ.
Better.
bhavet.
Would be.
Okay, would you like to read the translation?
Yeah, sure. Better for me if the sons of the Dhṛtarāṣṭra, weapon in hand, were to kill me, unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield.
Purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and editors. Purport. It is the custom, according to kṣatriya fighting principles, that an unarmed and unwilling foe should not be attacked. Arjuna, however, decided that even if attacked by the enemy, in such an awkward position, he would not fight. He did not consider how much the other party was bent on fighting. All these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness, resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord. Okay, let's have a look at the 72 edition. As we do our comparison, because we're looking at book changes, the edits, to develop an informed opinion and understanding of them. Don't do belief, do investigation. So, actually, let's switch to the annotated version of 72. So this is the 1972 Macmillan edition with corrections for the 1983 edition, but we're reading what is at least a 1989 edition in the other one. So here apparently there's some changes in the Sanskrit word for word. Matsya Avatar Prabhu makes the case that it's the genitive case. Me is in the genitive case. The genitive case is of me or for me, depending on the context. Of me means mine. That's an actually me and my.
Yeah.
That's in English a word that actually still has a genitive case. Otherwise, genitive case in English is usually comma apostrophe s. Dana's. This is Dana's phone. Or in Spanish we would say de Dana, of Dana.
Yeah.
But actually here it's for me rather than of me. Better for me. Para me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that makes sense for them to change it from there, would be, rather than become. And then in here, in the purport, an awkward phrasing. Let's have a look. Go back to here, yeah. Kill me unarmed and unresisting. So, okay. Okay, so we'll look at the changes that are annotated, and I can see a change that's not annotated. We'll look at that. The annotated change here, it says that previously it said, Arjuna, however, in such an enigmatic enigmatic position, decided he would not fight if he were attacked by the enemy. And it was changed to, Arjuna, however, decided that even if attacked by the enemy in such an awkward position, he would not fight. I personally find enigmatic to be better than awkward, because it's an enigmatic position. You know what enigmatic means?
Unknown.
Yeah, unknown. In Spanish, how would you say enigmatic?
Desconocido, enigmático.
Enigmático?
Yeah.
There's
Sí.
a word like that? Yeah, it's from
Es desconocido, básicamente.
yeah, it's like a mystery.
Yeah, you don't know it.
I think it was Winston Churchill, he had the saying, he said, it's an enigma, it's a riddle wrapped in a mystery surrounded by an enigma. But he's in an enigmatic position. It's mysterious, it's a riddle, it's like a puzzle. An enigma is kind of like a puzzle. Enigma was the name of the code machine that the Germans used in World War II. It was a machine that would encrypt all of their communications. It was called Enigma, because it's like a puzzle. It's an enigmatic, like what to do. It's a riddle, rather than just awkward, which means like difficult or embarrassing or tricky or hard. But apparently, according to the notes that are in here, it says that the original manuscript that Prabhupada typed out said, Arjuna, however, decides that he would not even fight. He is attacked by his enemy in that awkward condition. So the if is elided, it's not present. But the key point here is that the word awkward is the word that Prabhupada used rather than enigmatic.
I see, yeah.
I don't know that the editor missed the... See, it says the original editor missed the meaning intended. Arjuna, however, in such an enigmatic position, he's in a riddle. It's like, oh man, I've like got all these conflicting things going on. But then at the same time, maybe it's foreshadowing, because maybe he doesn't know that it's an enigmatic. Maybe it's just awkward. It's just difficult. Because at this point, Arjuna, and this is a good jump off into the text, is examining Arjuna's psychology. Arjuna's not yet in the enigmatic position, which is, you must fight. Arjuna is just like, I came here, we wanted to win the kingdom and enjoy the kingdom. That's, it's rightfully ours, we wanted it. But now that I see that I'm going to have to fight and kill my family, it's an awkward, tricky, difficult position to me to be in, and I don't want to fight. It seems clear-cut to Arjuna,
Right.
But it's enigmatic because his duty is that he has to fight. But Krishna will explain that to him in a little while. Why does Arjuna surrender to Krishna and ask him for his advice? Because what Krishna creates for him is that you are obligated to fight because you are a kṣatriya and you must do it. It is your dharma.
Yes, your duty.
Yeah, but maybe, and this is not written anywhere in here, right? In the text. And that is that Arjuna's like, I don't want to fight because my main motivation to fight is to win the kingdom and everything, and I just can't see myself killing, so many people and so many friends and family.
But I don't think he even have a motivation here.
What do you mean?
It's like, no, I don't want to fight, I just want to leave them to be complete rascals. Don't want to fight. I'm going to be disarmed. They can kill me.
It would be better if they were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield, rather than for me to engage in this sinful activity of destroying the dynasty and destroying the family.
Well, that is his argument.
Yeah.
When in reality is, your duty is to fight and put things aright. That is your duty. But he's coming with all different sorts of excuses, arguments. But Krishna, I don't want to touch them because they're my family. But Krishna, I don't want even the riches, the kingdom, because at the end of the day, the woman, the children, the elders, we're gonna lose religion, and irreligion will come, and one the progeny will come, and what else? So he's putting forward all of this.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have any motivation, He's like, he is basically, in a way, he's like, I'm unattached about this, I don't want to touch. I don't want to do anything with this.
I am attached to royal happiness because he does say, driven raja sukha lobena, driven by greed or desire for royal happiness. But what's happened to him is that when you put those two things up against each other, how much space have you got on over there? Maybe I'll move over a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
You got some space? I'll move over so I can, so that people can get more of me. Ian says, enigmatic, difficult to interpret or understand, mysterious. Thanks for tuning in, Rawari and Ian.
Yes.
But he says, I'm driven by the greed for royal happiness. He's like straight up about it. Yeah, that's what's driving, that's been a driver for me. I have that desire, but it's not enough to override this, I don't want to fight and kill my family, and I don't want them to be dead. So those two things are conflicting for him. So it's not that he has no desire, but it's become insufficient motivation.
Yeah, we can say that, insufficient motivation. It's not like so driven. Like I really want this, like the Duryodhan. It's like I don't care about your feelings. I don't care what you are thinking. I don't care about your woman or any children. It is just he's like single pointed.
There's a couple of factors that are not mentioned in here that might be worth putting out there, right? One of the things that is like, this is a waste of time, is they are seriously outnumbered and outgunned. So they're kind of like, he's kind of like, you know what? This is not even a slam dunk that we're going to win. It's like highly probable actually that we're going to lose. And then we're going to cause all this devastation and destruction because we want to enjoy the kingdom, and we're not even going to win it. And then we're just going to have killed all these people, destroyed all these families for nothing. That's why he says, even if we do win it, I'm not going to be able to enjoy it. Because he's thinking like, and that's a long shot, man. Like what's probably going to happen here is I'm just going to get everyone killed. Everyone who's joined us here, they're all going to get killed. And he's got warring in his own mind that these people came here and put themselves out. Like he actually knows he can't leave the battlefield. And that's why he surrenders to Krishna. Not because he knows that it's his duty according to Dharma and everything to fight, or he wouldn't need to have the conversation. But what's holding him in place is, I brought all these people to this point, and they have brought their swords to my banner, and they're standing behind me, and they're ready to die, and they're ready to kill for this, and I can't back away from it right now. But I can't see how we can win, and I can't see how anything good can come out of this. That's why he says, I see only causes for misfortune. He's in a very, very awkward position. Difficult.
That's the word, awkward.
Yeah. So they've gone with awkward. Awkward is the one that ended up in the...
He's against the wall.
Text. Now, there's a further change, because the change to the... You can see again, like the last verse, it has that N symbol.
I don't know what it means. It's kind of enigmatic.
It's an enigmatic, difficult to interpret or understand, mysterious symbol. But the original 72 translation is, I would consider it better for the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra to kill me, unarmed and unresisting, rather than fight with them.
He's having a loser mentality right now.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. Because he calculates that they are most probably and highly probably going to lose. And so that's why he says this. He says, listen, I'm going to go on the battlefield, we're going to fight, I'm going to kill a bunch of people, then we're all going to get killed, and then we're done. You know what would be better than that? If they just like killed me straight up, because then at least I wouldn't cause all of this devastation to these other families and the family dynasty and like the future and the forefathers. That's why he's saying this. This lets you know that he thinks they're going to lose. He's like, dude, it's something like a 3-2 numerical superiority on the side of the House of Kuru. And they have the most experienced generals and fighters on there, including the teacher of the Pandavas themselves. So it's like, dude, we're probably going to lose.
He's psychologically emasculated now.
Yeah. So the thing to notice here is that in the 72 edition it says, I would consider it better for the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra to kill me unarmed and unresisting rather than fight with them, versus better for me if the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Kill me unarmed and unresisting rather than fight with them.
I think this version is better, not this one.
Well, I mean, it doesn't substantially change anything in the meaning. I would consider it better for the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra to kill me unarmed and unresisting rather than fight with them. Śastra-pāṇayaḥ, aśastraṁ. So, śastra-pāṇayaḥ, those with weapons in hand, the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra, unarmed and unresisting. So it's been modified to bring in this idea in the Sanskrit that it says, you know, even me, without being resistant, without being fully equipped, you know, aśastram, without weapons. Śastra-pāṇayaḥ, those with weapons in hand, dhārtarāṣṭrā, the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra. On the battlefield, hanyuḥ may kill me, would be better. So it would be better for the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra to kill me on the battlefield with their weapons in hand, with me with nothing, unarmed and unresisting, to be executed on the battlefield. So there's a further edit that's taken place to bring in this idea of the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra weapons in hand, which is missing in the 72, but it's not accounted for in the change set that's justified in here. So there was another tranche of edits that didn't get in here. What you looking at?
It's interesting why they put it like all of these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness resulting from the being a great devotee of the Lord. That can be misused though.
Can you say more about that?
Like, all of these symptoms are due to soft-heartedness resulting from his being a great devotee of the Lord.
Well, I mean, Duryodhana would love it. This is like a dream come true. Great. You know, it's kind of like the bad guys in reality often win.
Because they will use that one to emasculate those soft-hearted people. You know?
Exactly.
It's like, and that is, I think, that psychologically, it's I can pinpoint here. If you use this psychologically, you say, you know, the Prabhus, you cannot fight, you cannot do this, you cannot, you know, call out on the swamis, the behaviors, because, you know, great devotees, they're soft-hearted and they're forgiving, they're tolerant. That means you are great devotees. Like, highly, that sentence can be used to manipulate men.
Well, I don't think even this can. Because you see, it's like, yes, just like Arjuna, he was soft-hearted and he fought anyway. You know, because what Bhagavad-gita is in its essence, so many things. Establishing the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the nature of the universe, time, karma, the eternal nature of the spirit soul. But in terms of the framing and the scenario, it is how do soft-hearted, compassionate, spiritually enlightened humans deal with psychopaths? Because that's what's happening here.
Yeah.
The other guy's a psychopath, as far as we can tell. Because we don't get an insight in this conversation into Duryodhana's psychology. But what we see is he's on the battlefield, he's in the wrong, because it's against Dharma, which is why Arjuna must fight. But he doesn't care about the consequences that are coming from it.
Not at all.
And Arjuna does, and that's a natural way of thinking for a human being. And then once you think like that as a human being, you think about negative consequences, as he has done for himself and for others, for generations before and generations to come. His concern is manifestly evident. And so, as you're saying here, that soft-heartedness would cause him to now not act, and then the bad guys win because they don't care. The psychopaths.
There is no, and also, you know, when we apply this in the natural psychology of human beings, you know, being soft-hearted means that you don't have boundaries there. And not having boundaries, you will be overstepped, you will be abused, and psychologically manipulated, emotionally manipulated. So we have to be very careful how we use it. Yeah, we can be soft-hearted, yet we can have a boundaries. That's the healthy way, you know. And Krishna is saying, yes, you can have compassion, you can have this one. However, you need to fight because this is your duty, you know. You must defend religious principles. You must defend dharma. Without it, woman, either way, you know, woman is going to be corrupted, or children will be destroyed, religion will be destroyed, and all of that. If you don't put those boundaries and put these people aright, then this is going to be the whole, the result.
Yeah, you know, when human beings think from consequences like that, they become easily able to be manipulated.
Oh, totally.
Once you understand what the other person, the other party is attached, the outcome they're attached to, becomes easy to control them.
Oh, yes, definitely.
You know, if Arjuna was to follow through on this, if he didn't have this conversation with Krishna that elevates his consciousness to another platform, if he stayed on this level, Duryodhana could play him like a fiddle. All Duryodhana would have to do is present Arjuna with the appearance of this scenario, and Arjuna would lose all of his motivation. And that's exactly what they did during the COVID pandemic, how they control people. They just say, like this is dangerous. Here is danger, and here is safety. Danger, safety. Danger, safety. That's all they have to do. And then the human beings, if they're not operating on the platform of Dharma, will just do the obvious thing, which is avoid danger, seek safety. Avoid danger, seek safety.
Right.
And that's the level that Arjuna is operating on, even though it's expressed as like much deeper, you know. Everything he says here, think about the children, think about the grandparents. It's exactly the same set of concerns that human beings have. It's more refined and more expanded, but it's basically like, do you want your children to die? Do you want your grandmother to die? No, you don't? Okay, well then put on the mask, do the lockdown, take the jab, get everyone else to do it, ban people from coming if they won't do it, and people are just like, oh, okay. And so when human beings operate on this platform, psychopaths can manipulate them, play them like a fiddle, easy.
Psychopaths, they don't have that ability to, well, they have some remorse at some point.
Psychopaths.
Psychopaths. So the psychopaths, they don't have that remorse part, their emotional ability to apply that in the situation. Sociopaths. Sociopaths, they do. Not all the time, but at times they have still that part in the brain that can wire into that area. So we have to be extremely careful, you know. Not only this we can also see, you know, from the psychological part of human beings, exactly what's happening right now, apply with examples that are current.
Yeah, and you have to understand it at a theoretical level. You might be like, oh no, but that's all completely justified in the data and the whatever, but you got to understand it like this. Psychopaths exist. Personalities like Duryodhana and his advisors, they exist. And they have an evolutionary advantage because they do not care. They, you know, like Duryodhana got himself in the position where he was. He was in control of all of the House of Kuru, the military might, the symbols of legitimacy and everything, because he was an expert politician, as Prabhupada says in an earlier purport. And he did that because his speaking is disconnected from any kind of concern, and it's fully focused on creating the outcome that he's committed to. And he's prepared to say anything that will manipulate people to get it.
Yeah.
So his speaking is unhinged from reality, and it is only hinged around a future that he wants to create that serves him. And so he will even tell different people different things, create a complete, fantastic version of reality for different people. And the thing about people who are psychopaths is they have a different neurological wiring
For sure.
that they can even pass lie detector tests because they fully believe it themselves.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. And they're experts in recognizing, just by looking at a person, their weakness. It's like they can see by color coding. It's like, okay, this is my victim. Easy. Emotionally, they are they can be the most charismatic because they pick up the cues of what normal or ordinary human beings like, being praised, and give them some special words that will feel like, wow, elated about it, and they feel like, oh yeah, he's genuine, and naturally you feel attracted to someone that says really nice things.
Mm-hmm.
That is just the psychology of human beings, Someone that tells you very nice things and always boosts your ego, you will be like tantalized by it.
If you study Duryodhana's speech at the beginning, you can see that. Prabhupada says he's speaking here. He considered that, the others who were there might feel themselves to be lesser. So there he says, everyone from all your positions support Bhishma. He also mentioned in a list of the heroes one guy who was like way down the list, but his loyalty was kind of shaky. So Duryodhana elevated him into that list there to kind of shore him up. And one note about that is that not all psychopaths are kind of like evil people. There are some people who have that neurological wiring, but they don't operate as like the bad guys.
No.
An example of that, there's one researcher who researched psychopaths, and he developed like some kind of inventory type thing, and he had a whole bunch of people do the inventory, and just kind of to test it, and then, he filled it out as well and everything. And then as he sorted through all the results and everything, he discovered that there was one person in the results set who was a psychopath.
Ouch.
But
Run away.
Yeah, but guess what he discovered when he pulled the results out?
What?
It was him.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. He was actually the psychopath.
Ooh.
And his whole thing was about studying psychopathy. He might be the guy, I'm not sure if it's him or not, but there is a guy on YouTube who has a YouTube channel about life as a psychopath, because he is a psychopath, and so he's got a whole thing about it. I'll look that up.
We should study psychopaths so we can recognize quickly.
Well, I had to study them as a manager in a company. I was a manager in a large publicly traded company, and the director of the company, the one that, because it's a different company in different countries, It's a large corporation, it's global, so the companies are incorporated in the various jurisdictions, and the director of the company in the country where I was, who was also my direct manager, he had me read this book called Snakes in Suits When Psychopaths Go to Work, because part of what my job as a manager was to make sure that we didn't get infiltrated by psychopaths, because they love corporations.
Yeah.
They love, a situation where they can get into this power structure where there's like the concentration of power and influence and prestige and wealth, and they are expert at manipulating and navigating those structures.
Oh, yes.
If you have a corporation where you do an activity X, which is providing a service or a product or a combination of services and products to people in the world, right? But then you also have a structure that exists to support that activity. Psychopaths have no interest in the activity. They're interested in the structure. And they are expert at manipulating and moving and weaving in there and coalescing the power to themselves. So I had to study it for that purpose.
And the most dangerous with this is when once you call them out, you will be made pieces by that psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Well, they say when you know there is a psychopath, narcissistic, you just run away.
Which kind of is a good segue, I guess, to complete the book changes. One, I don't know if it's going to complete it. Looking at these changes and the way that they are, they've been justified in here, which is great, but then there's been a further tranche of editing, and is there a further one after that? Are there more in the future? And I realize that the the book editing process is vulnerable, if you like, or to many of the same criticisms or critiques that I made of the proposal to annotate the books.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that the process that is used to do that. So there are two processes involved. One is the process by which we determine that we will do further edits or annotations. Mm-hmm. That's the first process, to introduce the process.
Right.
And the second process is the process by which we do the annotations. Mm. Both of those were completely undefined. Like they just dropped it and said, oh, we think you should do annotations, do annotations. I was like, that's your process for doing this? You just like announce it? And you don't even have like a paper that examines the pros and cons and the potential dangers. Mm-hmm. Are you aware of the risks that are involved in what you're doing? One of the risks is that if we announce that we're going to do such a thing, it will cause a fissure, it will cause a split, a massive deterioration in our own credibility.
Right, yeah.
Because we will have exceeded our mandate. There will be devotees out there who will just categorically reject it.
Yeah.
So how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to deal with making sure that devotees aren't alienated by this? They didn't even consider that.
No.
They just were like, oh, do the thing. And so that's the process by which this was done. Same thing here. Such a process, the book editing, is just like, oh, we're just going to edit them. And we're just going to edit them an unknown number of times. And then there's the process by which the editing itself takes place. And then in this company where I worked, because I worked in that company for 10 years, I've worked at a number of organizations, in my professional career. I did 3 years in the BBT in South America, publishing Prabhupada's books, translating them, distributing them, printing them. And I did 8 years as a professional technical writer and a manager of a technical writing team inside a department. And I mean, we had Fortune 500 customers, people they had shareholders, they had investors, they had insurance, federal government contracts, certifications they needed to do federal government engagements, security certifications that had to be met, big banks, big 5 banks and stuff. And every single change that we made to any of our documents was 100% tracked. It was accountable, transparent. You knew exactly what was changed, when, by who. And there was a ledger that you could go back and examine all of that forensically. Now, if we had not had that, we would have lost security certifications. We would have lost federal government ability for our customers or for us to sell into the federal government or to work with the federal government. We would have been sued.
Yeah, definitely.
So when I look at the way that this has been done, because Gora said to me, as you go through, he said, I haven't had a chance to look at anything yet, but as you go through, it would be good if you can say, not just like book changes are bad, but you can say, well, I can see how this one would make sense and this one. But what I'm saying is the process that's used to introduce the book editing and the process that's used to do the book editing are so corrupted, lacking in integrity, that it's inconceivable to me. And I went onto the BBT Edit website and I found FAQ videos, discussing the book changes.
Yeah, last night. Yeah,
and we looked at them and I'm incredulous. I really am. I watched one and Jayadvaita Swami, God bless his soul, is saying I'm not going to give people a walkthrough. 8 out of 10 devotees wouldn't even understand.
They'll squint at me.
Yeah, if I tell them that it's a squinting modifier, they'll just squint at me. So, I watched that and I was like, okay, but you're talking to someone, because most devotees would back down and they'd be like, what, he's right, I couldn't understand the changes. But I look at the video and I go, do you know who you're talking to right now? Because I don't consider you to be superior to me in this regard. Like in terms of the book editing process that you're using, I find it to be unacceptable. And the fact that you are in such a delusion about how good it is like criminal. And then the other devotees that they have backing the whole thing up, It's a criminal conspiracy. It's at that level of like, we would be sued if we had done something like that, to operate with such a lack of integrity, and then to be so delusional about it. Someone else would say arrogant, right?
Totally.
People would say that it's arrogance, but for me, I'm not so much into humility and being humble or arrogant. For me, what those things are, I meditated on this for a long time, because devotees like, you have to be humble, and I'm like, what does it even mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means to be realistic. Like, you have a realistic assessment. And then to be arrogant is to be delusional. It's to have an overestimation of your capability. But if you have a realistic assessment of your capability, that is what it is to be humble. This idea of humble meaning like humus, being close to the earth and saying, oh, I'm so low. It's like, no, you're not. You know, you're using that as being cowardly, as being an excuse, as hiding the fact that you really think that you're all this and that. But to be realistic, it takes humility to be real. To be like, you know what, I need to do this, and this is how good I am at doing this, and I'm going to do it, rather than being like, I'm not going to do it, and like Arjuna on the battlefield, right? He's not being humble. So yeah, when I saw that, and I look at it, and I'm like, just the disdain, and like, oh, you're too stupid to understand. These devotees are too stupid to understand it anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of insulting, actually, you know.
Well, that was the other thing that he said, was he said it's insulting when people say, you know, why haven't you shown me the changes? I'm like, it's insulting that you don't show the changes.
It's how psychologically said, oh, don't ask me for any changes because, you know, you're insulting me. That's why the argument, the protection comes.
I can recreate his argument. So the argument is that, oh, there are so many changes that have been made, and what are you hiding? You know, what's the dark conspiracy? And he's like, I find that to be insulting. I'm like, what? You created an editing process that introduces an area of lack of integrity and lack of transparency and accountability, and then you find it insulting that people are like, you have created an area with no transparency or integrity to it. What is inside that area? We want to know.
Yeah.
And it's like, you created the possibility of a dark conspiracy in there. And then you say, oh, it's insulting that people would say that. And then it's like, and you know, they're too stupid to understand what it is. And devotees might be backed off by that, or they might go, oh, you know, he's arrogant, who does he think he is? And they also cover that. I don't say he's arrogant, I say that's delusional. Because as a writing and editorial professional who's worked in a Fortune 500 company with federal and top 5 bank customers, that level of operation, unacceptable. Like, yeah, and to be that delusional about it is like crazy to me. And, you know, here's this situation where the books have this unknown editing process around them and a lack of transparency, and, you know, and that's not the issue. It's insulting that people would point that out.
I think it's fair to point it out, you know.
It's just real to point it out.
It is.
It's just real.
It is needed. Absolutely needed, especially for something, for a book that is divinely written by Krishna himself, spoken, and Srila Prabhupada doing all of this work. And this guy is like, no, I will change it. Don't tell me what to do. You don't even ask me why, you know, why I'm editing and the process of it.
Well, he doesn't mind if you ask why he's editing and the process of it, but his process that he's using is so low quality that when it's like, I'm not going to explain what I've done to you because you're too stupid. And I find it insulting that you would say that, you know, that my process lacks transparency and accountability. It's like, it's delusional for you to say that. Your process lacks transparency and accountability. And then the other thing he said was like, oh, I consulted with the devotees whose input matters, and, you know, I have no accountability to anyone else. But it's like, here's, Ian says, to not discuss changes is to withhold communication and lack of integrity. It devalues any devotee's faith. That's exactly right. That's my experience of it, is like, he's like, your faith is like meaningless to me. Or like, it's like, really, you're that out of touch. The changes. I've lost my train of thought. I had another point that I wanted to make that was quite important. No, it's okay. Let's see if we can backtrack to where it was. I'm obviously very emotionally connected to this, and professionally affronted. Why the changes? The process. Oh yeah. So one of the justifications that's given is like, Prabhupada trusted him so much that he made a large tranche of edits, submitted it, and then Prabhupada just sent it back almost immediately saying, whatever he's done is good. Right? And then that is taken as a carte blanche, along with a few other kind of examples like that, to say that anything that he does into the future is also good. But here's the problem with that. It's twofold. You can't relate to yourself as like, I can never deviate in the future, so I don't need to be accountable to anything. They're like, well, you know, he's done this thing and he's never deviated in the past, so it's all good. But it's like, it's only later on that you find out that people have deviated. And what do you do then?
Exactly.
What happens if it turns out in the future that there was something that no one knew about, and it comes out that, I don't know, you can just make up anything. Anything's possible. You know, he was secretly getting paid by the CIA. Imagine if that came out. And it's easy for people who are like, how could you say such a thing? That's offensive. It's like, keep it real. If you want to talk about being humble, it's like, that's possible, so we have to mitigate against that as a potential risk. And even if you were the guy yourself, you'd be like, we have to do it this way because that's how we do this. That's the process that we use. Because I might get corrupted, or something might happen, and I need a system in place to protect me.
That is actually being humble, because, you know, you recognizing your
fallibility.
Yeah, exactly. You're not infallible, you're fallible. And putting in place people that you are accountable to, and helping you on the process, how you're doing all of this.
Yeah. And
that marks your character of a humbleness and your loyalty to Srila Prabhupada.
Yes. So what's happened there is Prabhupada's personal presence and authorization for the changes and everything that's going on. Okay, sure. And then Prabhupada goes, but then rather than replacing Prabhupada's personal presence with a system, like, okay, we're going to have an accounting ledger where everything can be examined and everything can be forensically accounted, and brahmanas have access to it, and they can go through and do it, because, you know, like, we're going to concentrate everybody's faith up into me and a couple of other people that I trust. It's like, really? You're gonna roll the dice on the entire organization on that, and then you're gonna be like, you should trust me, and if you don't, it's insulting and offensive. I'm like, dude, brother, that is not humble. That is not realistic. What would make sense is you create a transparent accounting ledger. Everything is available and accessible, and brahmanas can look at it. And then me personally in New Zealand or wherever I happen to be, as a devotee there, with like, I can't go through all the changes, but there are brahmanas who can. And then the guy I know, who I know personally, is like, I've personally gone through everything, and this is, you know, what it is. To have a process like that in place has integrity. To do it the way that it's been done lacks integrity.
And you know, the thing that worries me is the new generation of brahmacharis. They're just going into the latest books, they're just reading, they're just going with that. I don't know if there is a system where they can go through the books, you know, discriminate between the books and the translations and the changes. I don't think there is such a
no, absolutely. There isn't anything
group like that. They're just blindly following whatever they said, and you know, they follow so easily.
Well, yeah, I mean, but you know,
because if there were a group like this, brahmacharis and well-learned and doing very strict in the reading of the books and translations, this one could have been discussed a long time ago. Srila Prabhupada departed like 60 years now ago. Is there any group as such they've been discussing openly this?
What, the book changes?
Yeah, the book changes, where everything is done. People are challenging why this, and you know, all the process and everything. I don't think there is any.
Well,
as
no.
far as I'm aware, I may
Sure.
be ignorant.
Yeah. So the thing is that Jayadvaita Swami will say, yes, we had those discussions among the devotees who are qualified to do that.
Who are those? Because the thing is, being transparent here means this person, this person, this person, this person are the ones who are well learned, and we went through this, and this is the process we follow. Like you're saying, there have to be a process for doing that. Is there such a thing as that we can have access, we can compare, and why they did the rationale and everything? No, I don't think so.
So you're describing two different things there. You're describing the proxy system, where it's like, okay, these devotees went through it and double checked it, and there's a group, an elite, the scientists did the science, right? And now the conclusion is that here is the science, right? And then the other one is, here are the experimental results and the experiment design, everything which you can examine for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Those are two different things. Like this thing here, for example, is the, here's what was done and how it was done. The other one is like, if you watch the videos, he'll say, I consulted with Dravida Prabhu and I consulted with this one and the other one. And they, were aligned with it. One of the things I think, though, is that if the editing were done with that kind of accounting and transparency, that would change how the editor was doing and how they were thinking about it. And then someone could say, I'm going to take the counterpoint now, right, and argue against myself based on my ability to do that.
Okay.
And that is that, who do you think you are? And everybody's going to have an opinion about the edits and the book and everything. And, it's just going to be an unlimited conversation about like, if we just go back to this one change here, whether this change should have been made or not. Or whether changes should be done at all. Right? Because some devotees are like, the changes should not be done. But I would argue about that those devotees are not, those kind of things could be addressed because what they see is there's a complete lack of transparency and accountability in the process. And that's very worrying for people. And then to say that, they're just conspiracy theorists and that, it's like, why? Because implicit in that is because I'm a pure devotee and I could never fall down and deviate. My intelligence could never be captured by Kali and manipulated in such a way that I couldn't see it. And, I have some other devotees around me and you're insulting and offending them as well. It's like, how about being humble and like realistic and being like, we are conditioned living entities. We have the tendency to be illusioned, to make mistakes. There's a cheating propensity even. Hey, so, in order to avoid that, we're going to have this transparent procedure that we use to do it. I mean, Reagan called it, he said, trust but verify. Trust
that's exactly
but verify.
That's exactly, as devotees, we have to be able to, in order for us to trust the integrity of the book, we have to double check. And I think it's best to stick to the older version, the first version of Srila Prabhupada, because it has more essence. Yeah, there may be some mistakes here, but you know what? We need to maintain the integrity of the book. And if there was any changes, I guess we have to do the procedure very carefully.
Yeah.
So we are not in question, and the integrity of the book is not in question, That's the priority. That's the thing that we need to maintain here for Krishna consciousness itself, religion that is given to save the world.
Okay. I mean, you might have made like an intuitive jump beyond what I'm capable of. Because I have this, in my Clifton Strengths profile, number 1 is strategic. And it causes me to have these ability to analyze things to such a depth that I'll make a jump that to people just looks like that doesn't even make sense, Like it's too many intermediate steps, right? And what you just said was we should stick with the original editions because they have more of the essence, right? Which is one of the arguments that they consider and then, counter with a whole lot of things. But, I would take the position that it's unknown. That's unknown until you do the analysis. And they would say, you don't need to do the analysis because you can short circuit that by trusting us. In other words, they're substituting faith in the personalities and a statement that they make about themselves that we are beyond doubt. That's dangerous to say that. And also that if I were to, when we do complete this, going through the Bhagavad-gita verse by verse and comparing the changes, that at the end of it we go, you know what, there are no changes that have been made here that substantively change the meaning or anything, right? So maybe we do get through the whole thing and then we arrive at that conclusion for ourselves, and then we're like, you know what, this edition here, and I mean, this is the other thing, is like, this is my 1989 edition, which was, this particular one was printed in 92, I think.
Yeah.
On rice paper?
Yeah. Rice paper.
Yeah, it's rice paper. 95. It was printed in 95. I bought it in 1997. And this is the edition that I've read for the last 25 years. It would be kind of weird for me to now go, well, the 1989 edition is no good compared to 72. I've just been reading the 89 edition for the last 25 years. So there's no question for me that this edition of the Gita works, right? I think there's an opportunity to go deeper into understanding in the relationship, not just with the Bhagavad-gita, but with the Bhaktivedanta purports and the whole history of it by doing this cross-examination that we're doing,
sure.
Forensic examination.
Yeah.
But my concern is that the process that's used to do this is so open to abuse that, if they don't put in place this forensic accounting ledger, at what point do changes to this thing stop?
Yeah, because the thing here is, this is why they've been doing all of these changes and, in their group, just talking about it and probably agreeing all the time. Once there are few steps for to their dead burial place. Somebody else arrogant will come thinking they are so intelligent and say, no, actually no. The way it is this way, and they'll come and then take the position of such a leadership thing, and they will start changing it.
Yeah.
And then another 20 or 50 years will happen, and another psychopath will go and then do, actually, no, this is not the way, and they start changing it.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the purity? What is the essence anymore? And why are we allowing for that to continue being changed? Like yesterday, I think Ian mentioned, it's like the Bible, for over 2,000 years has been changed. And then everyone is just getting into their groups of religion groups and then doing their own books and their own way.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the devotees doing the editing, and that would be mostly Jayadvaita Maharaj, are psychopathic. No, I'm not saying that they are, and I'm not saying that they're not, right? But what I am saying is the editorial process as it stands right now is not psychopath-proof, and that's an issue. No, you have to design your organization and your processes and systems to be resistant to psychopaths, because they love to get inside corporations and organizations and hijack them. In the company where I was a technical writer and a manager of a technical writing team inside a division, and where we had transparency, accountability, we had vice presidents who were there as saying ethics, integrity is the thing. If it comes right down to it and it's going to cost us money, but we have to do the right thing, you always have to choose the right thing. We just got drilled in that by our leaders there. And in that organization, we did the transparent, accountable ledger of all changes in the documentation, and I had to read a book about resisting the organization to the infiltration of psychopaths. And then I come and look at this, and I'm like, the quality of this process for doing this is extremely low, so that you know. And coming out and insulting all of the devotees and telling them that they're all stupid and everything, it's actually delusional, because you just insulted me. And just to be real about it, like looking at what you're doing and how you're doing it, I mean, all glories to you as a devotee and the great service that you've done. It's exemplary. It is unique on this planet at this time. And this is not the best way to do this. Just like straight up, you know. There's a better way to do it, and if you're open to contribution about that, here's a way you can do it. You know, it's kind of like a non-violent communication sort of way of doing it, which is not natural to me, but I've been developing myself in that. And we're actually going to... Oh, that's not on this podcast. It's on another podcast. We'll be talking about that stuff. Yeah. And so it's not psychopath proof, and that's the biggest problem with the process. And there's no awareness that it needs to be that. There's a lot of defensiveness against like devotees saying like, oh, it loses the essence and your edits suck, and he's like, my edits are good and you don't understand how to edit and everything. It's like there's another conversation on another level from that, which is, how do we design this organization to be psychopath proof, and how do we make this process so that it has integrity, transparency, and is psychopath proof for the future? Because it's not just about what edits you make, it's about how edits are made to the books and the culture that we establish around that. And that at the moment I find to be lacking. It's not a statement about the state of the book right now. That remains unknown for me. You know, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's kind of like the position that Prabhupada asks us to take at the beginning of Bhagavad-gita. Just theoretically accept that Krishna is God and go and see how you go. So I theoretically accept that the book is good, and then I'll go and I'll compare them, and we'll see at the end how it is. But even just having done a few verses in the first chapter and compared them, the process that's used to do the editing is problematic. I don't need to examine the 5,000 changes to know that.
5,000 changes.
Yeah, that's the number that gets thrown around. But
interesting.
You know, well, there's no definitive number, because it's not even tracked. It's not even tracked. The only reason why we have this, apparently, is we were lucky that one of the other editors found it in a trunk of things in 2006. These edits were done before 1983, for the 1983 edition, and then they were missing in the Indiana Jones archive with the Ark of the Covenant.
Missing.
Yeah, until 2006, when it showed up, and now you have access to kind of something. But like, you know, is there any awareness, or was there anything where they said, like this? Let me model it for you. It's problematic that we haven't tracked the changes and been completely transparent, so that devotee scholars, brahmanas, can examine them, and devotees can know with certainty what was done, the integrity of the process that was used to do it, and they can be sure that these books contain the essence and are faithful to Prabhupada's desire and his messaging. And so we're putting in place a process to make that happen. You know, we lost the edits from the 1983 edition and found them in 2006. We're going to make sure that to the greatest extent possible, we're going to do the work to create this transparent ledger. The transparent ledger doesn't occur for them as work that needs to be done. They're like, you know what? Devotees should just trust us, and like, you know, these people who are being insulting and offensive, they can just go away. They're just like sour grapes. They should just get lost, and we'll make some videos justifying why that's the case, and that's the extent of the work that we're going to do. That's the message that I got from what I looked at there.
We have to keep looking those videos. Yeah, for sure, because you know, this is an evidence, and also who they are as a person, and their explanation about the changes of the books. And incredible, this book has been lost.
Yeah, that's a bit strange, but
it is really strange. It is absolutely strange to me.
Yeah. Let's go with the 89, as far as I can tell, edit for the translation for today. It contains a śastra-pāṇayaḥ. this phrase here in Sanskrit that was elided or left out in the 1972 translation. It's been added back in here. 145. Yadi mam apratīkāram aśastram śastra-pāṇayaḥ dhārtarāṣṭrā raṇe hanyus tanme kṣema-taraṁ bhavet. Better for me if the sons of Dhṛtarāṣṭra, weapons in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Total world victory of Hare Krishna.
Haribol.